So I am just going to be talking about some random things I've been thinking about forever. You, this stuff is covering a lot of the board. You are gonna have to ignore this. I am keeping this on here. I'm trying to memorize these. So, um, I've been noticing some things in Spanish. For some people speaking Spanish, whenever there's like you got a word, it ends with a vowel, and then the next word starts with a vowel. You act like it's one. You don't act like it's one word necessarily. You do space it out, especially if it's a different sentence. But like in a song, to make it go smoother, what you do is you take this vowel sound and you move that over here. You make this one have that sound, like as if it was that the whole time, and then you don't pronounce this, because now they are mixed. Even though you can still hear by spacing, they are different words. I've noticed that. It's pretty difficult to understand because that if someone's talking, like a native is speaking that very fast, you might not understand it entirely. This guy get copyrighted, but I'm not monetized, so yeah, I keep noticing that, but every time I try and look back at seeing that, it just never happens. Unless I'm just not looking for it. But I noticed that here. See, I'm not sure if you heard that, but I see this word a lot. I'm not entirely sure what either of these things mean at all. So, the sound it made here, when it's the letter O, you just keep the letter O, I guess. But so it was this that were the actual lyrics, but the way it sounded was this. I don't know if they got rid of the L, probably too light. I don't know. Maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't. So, on to the next subject. I feel like I might know where this originates. Well, a lot of languages like to just, like, because you write this way when you're having a word. Well, when you write numbers, you write this way. You might think, no, that's not how it works. We write this way the whole time. But no, it's 15. 15, even though the fifth and the teen doesn't make sense. Because you're supposed to start the 1 first. Because that starts on the number line. Start 1, 2, 3, etc. And then you get to tens afterwards. So you should start it with the ones, but instead we started with the tens, meaning that we changed the writing system to be backwards. And it could just because it just looks nicer. A lot of languages likely do it like that. I feel like it has something to do with the Phoenicians. Because in the Phoenician alphabet, you could write it in any way you wanted to. Didn't matter if it was that way or that way. But most writing systems, when evolving from Phoenician, chose one specific writing system. Meanwhile, Latin just did both. But they chose a specific one, like there was Phoenician, and then we got Aramaic that was this way, but could be either of them, and then stayed this way because it was easier to chisel that way. With when it evolved to Hebrew, and Greek chose this way because it's just easier, I guess. Though not always, as they did put in wax. Sometimes they put it like that. Some people didn't really feel like doing that, but it was easier to do it that way because they had like a small wax thing that they would just carve. They would carve the letters into it. Back then they had more angular looking letters. Like this. I don't remember what the B was. It might have still been this. Might have been this. It might have even been this. I don't remember. But it was more angular because that was easier. For some reason, I was this instead of this. Yeah, they choose one specific way, and so in Latin, what they would do was I don't know, you could see in a way that like the way some of them do it is you have like 15, you do 10 plus 5, which it was easier to remember that like in a way you can imagine like on a number line how the 1 at the beginning, it moves, it finds a 10, and it doesn't push the 10 with it, and then become, let's do a better example. 2, it doesn't push the 10 with it so that's 12, instead it goes through it and pulls it with it. Like this for 12 goes after the 10. You can imagine it like that, and I feel like it comes from the Romans because of their number system. You would start with the ones, and then after that you do this, and now it's minus that because it was before, so it's smaller, so it's less of that. So now it's 4, and well, if you put it afterwards, it would be plus. Because they need an opposite. And then we just kept it like that. We didn't have the before thing because then there's it's base 10. It's not a different thing for every big amount. It's just keep the same number. So you needed 51. That wouldn't be 5 because it's like 10 minus 1, 5, I don't know. No, they didn't keep that, but they kept the plus thing. And 0 means nothing. So you can imagine that as a variable. So then 1x, this equals 5, you got 15. Put 5 in its place. Now, what I don't like about numbers is how, yeah, now you see, they write this way, but numbers are this way. I don't like that. See, when I write, a big number, like I don't know what that is. What I do is I look at it in sections starting this way. You see, this is in the 100 spot. So then, wait, down to there. And past that, 10. So for me, it was easier to go ones place. So then it'd be 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 100,000, million, 100 million. It's easier for me to do it like that. And I tried doing it different way. 1, 10, 100, 1,000. It was a bit harder to do. I didn't like it. That's why I think we should write like this and write numbers the same way. And I don't have much else to talk about. I just came here to talk about it. I just saw the Spanish topic as well. Didn't really make a whole video on the Spanish thing because it's very short. But I've been wanting to talk about that number thing for a while because it just really bothers me. I don't really like it. However, something I do like is when you have one consistent way with the writing system, even if it's slightly off. Like Latin, it's pretty cool how it goes this way and then this way. It's not consistent, but it's cool, and that kind of reminds me of the Rungo script. That old wood carving. And then you start right here. You go here, and then you turn the whole thing upside down. Bottom, turn it upside down, and then write it this way again. So then you turn it the other way around, and it's the exact same. It's still consistent, but makes it a bit cooler. It makes it easier to go through the whole thing, kind of, for some. I like that. And if you didn't turn it 180 degrees, it would just be this. Very easy to read. I like going like that. What I'm surprised about is that most people are right-handed, so that's why most languages write this way. However, some languages write this way. It's because it's easier to chisel something like that. Because you're right-handed, then you hold the hammer with your right hand, and you hold the chisel with your left hand. It's just gonna have to stay in place. It doesn't have to do that much moving. You don't need to coordinate it very well. And then it's easier to chisel like that. So it went that way because it was easier to, rather than, it's easier. However, something I'm very surprised about is that, because imagine you're on an island. Like, imagine Romulus and Remus were never met the Latins, or any of the Romans met any of the Latins. Then they don't discover the Latin language. They'd have to, like, make their own one. So, I imagine that if you made your own one, you would likely write it like this, because it's easier to do that when you're right-handed. However, I'm surprised there's no left-handed ancient people having to make a language and then go like this. I've not heard of anything like that. And that's very surprising. I'm surprised there's not even, like, at least one. And I've already gotten 12 minutes. I don't know how I've done that. This was not very much. You know, a lot of times when I try and learn a new alphabet, I'll always see something in the, there's something that really bothers me every time I do that. Like, let's watch. If I, there, I search up, the cuneiform alphabet. I see this. This is a lie. This is not the cuneiform alphabet. They had way less letters than this, and they did not write it like, it's pretty much like an abjad. Everything had two sounds going together, a consonant and a vowel. Some of them even had more sounds. They don't have the exact same way. It's not the exact same as ours, because ours does not come from cuneiform. That's an entirely different thing that comes from itself. Meanwhile, I also don't like how, I'll search up something that's more phonetic, like how we have it. Like, it's an alphabet in the same way we have it. It's more phonetic for each thing. Each thing has their own sound. And it's not an abjad. There's not multiple sounds at the same time. And when I search an alphabet like that, all the time, like, most of the images are going to be like this. You see anything wrong with this? Look at the letters. You might not see anything wrong with it. Well, A. What sound does A make? Think. You might say A. You might say A. It can also make the ah sound. Yeah. Just gotta check. It could be any of these, and it doesn't specify which one. And it's not going to be all of these, because it does not evolve from the same place as Latin. Glagolitic was its own thing. It does not come from the same place as Latin. It evolved entirely differently, so it doesn't have the same thing for A. And for some reason, they still have things like Z. I don't know what this one does, but Z. I really don't like how in phonetics they have it like, here's a yod. It's supposed to make the Y and the G sound in Old English. Meanwhile, in Cyrillic, it makes the Z sound because it's based off of zeta. The IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, uses this as a Z sound. But I don't know why they do this and not something like this, the actual zeta. A modern origin of our own Z, because we don't speak Phoenician anymore. So the earliest ancestor we still have is Greek. Use theirs, not Cyrillic. That came way after things. I really don't like that. And for some reason it says J, which if you put S with an upside down caret, that is SH. So this is J, not Z, J. Meanwhile, right after that, we see this as a different letter, this as a different letter. It's very hard to see. It says these are different letters, but to the International Phonetic Alphabet, they're the same. Something I'm seeing on here is that it doesn't seem all that much correct. I'm gonna be honest. Because I don't think that this letter evolves from Greek. I know that this one evolves from Greek. Most things in Cyrillic evolve from the Greek alphabet. This was based off of sigma. Because you can take sigma, you fold it, and then you do this, flip it the other way. Kind of like how originally there was this and this could also come from it in Phoenician. So it's flipped over of a sigma, and this I don't think evolves from a sigma. I'm pretty sure it evolves from Glagolitic, and yet this thing right here says this is B. I don't think that's true. I don't believe it at all, and yet it has other things as actual. Okay. So, take a look at these letters right here. Very different, right? This thing says so, but no, they're the same. They're the fucking same. Ch and ch. They're the exact same sounds. Why are they written differently on here? Something I don't really understand about Cyrillic is how it's supposed to evolve from only Greek, and the letters it needed were from Glagolitic if it wasn't in Greek. And it has no association with Latin. It just got finalized and looked a bit better over time, so it kind of looked like it was evolved in the same place as Latin. In a way, it looks Romanized, but it's not. And yet, this letter exists. And you know what that looks like? It looks like an English E. And they have this in there. A lot of people write an epsilon like this, even though it's like this. I can see what they got from this to here, but I don't know where this comes from, because that's not an epsilon. That's just there. That's only Latin. That's Latin. Why is it there? So there's that topic. I also want to say some things. So here's B. We got it from something kind of like, I think it was like this. And in many places, the B sound looked like this. I don't know how Runic also got that, even though they're on like the entire other side of the continent. But so it was this, and then simplified. Then the Greeks tried to make a lowercase version, and it went from the B sound to the V sound. Well, the letter D, there was this. Latins did this, and over time swapped it around because their writing system, and then closed it, even though that looks like an R, to the original Old Italic script. But this, the Dalit, became Delta. It's a bit of a mismatch of letters in the name. There's more of this, and then that pretty much became this, which was then this. And I don't know where this comes from. Kind of reminds me of the letter D. Because if you have D, make this more curvy, delta. I don't know where that comes from, but over time, I've heard that it went from the D sound, which we have the D sound because of them. We got the writing form of it more like. Then they over time changed it to an F. More. Which I guess that kind of proves my theory that F was pronounced and not V. So it can't really be entirely interchangeable with Thorn, but I can see that. People all the time get angry about the letter W. I think I've talked about this before. This is a U to the Romans. It made the U and V sound. And as a U does, it could also make a W sound, but they needed their own letter so that it would be better and less confusing. So they liked to put two of them together. Some people over time wrote it like this, some people wrote it like this still, so then they combined them. W. And different places called it a double V as well, because it could make that sound as well. However, at some point, they wanted that sound. They used W as a placeholder until they can find an actual letter. They went to the rune place. They went to the Celtics. They went to the Norse, which spoke rune, and they had this letter called Win. And they just Romanized it a bit more, just like how they Romanized Thorn. So they did that, and people thought it looked too much like a P, and they were very used to the W, so they kept W, got rid of that. This is called Win. Something I think is really cool, but most people would not think this at all, and this is not a very good reason to bring it back, but you type W in chat all the time, and this is short for win. However, this was called win. So you would put a win for win, which would be pronounced if you just only said the letter as win. Win-win. I don't like the Q. The Q makes the same sound as K. It didn't always make the same sound. Every language from Phoenician, I'm pretty sure had the Q letter, and some still do. Some do pronounce it differently, but in English, it just became the same thing. And you always go like, but you put a U and that's a Q. Yeah, if you put a K there, it's a Q. But you could just do that sometimes, if it's next to another vowel. That's what I have to say. I don't know how I've been here for 24 minutes. But, yeah. So, there was that, and I am now I'll this. You know, when someone tries to make up their own language, they always just take the normal English alphabet and then they will literally just make it look different. That is a code. That is an encryption. That's not a language. It's not how they work. How does the language evolve? What got it to the letters it has? That's what you need to focus on. And yet they don't think of that when they make languages for some reason. You know, in a way, a lot of Phoenician languages are conlangs. They're constructed languages made just for communication of their own nation. Greek is a conlang in a way. Because it has no ancestor for any sort of vocabulary. They took the Phoenician alphabet, made it a bit better for better sounds and looked like it fit more, and then they had a basis. They made their own basis for vocabulary. Had three nations, Ionic, Doric, and Attic, make more vocabulary, evolve more, and then they just derived into a bunch of different places all around ancient Greece with different dialects until they all came together into Koine Greek. So it's kind of a big conlang. That took too much time.